Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Health Matters podcast, the show where we discuss all things health related, from physical health, social health, mental health, spiritual health, and everything in between. I'm your host, Dr. Fundi, and today we have a special guest, Ms. Ndumi Hadebe. Not Hadebe, Hadebe, with an H. All right? She's our special guest for today. Very bubbly person. You're going to experience her. Very dynamic person. She's a leadership coach. She's an author of a book that is titled Handle Black Text Like a Pro. So today, we thought it would be important as we celebrate the Youth Day to actually focus on something that many people don't want to talk about or even address, the issue of black text. So having written a book on black text, she will share a lot of wisdom with all of us about how to navigate this very, very sensitive issue. We are broadcasting live from multiple social media platforms, from YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter. We also are going to be having our podcast on Sun TV, Rising Sun TV on channel 504 on Starset. So please subscribe to our channel, and I look forward to your comments through voice notes, through social media comments, and also on WhatsApp. The number is 067 859 5249. 067 859 5249. And like I've said, today's topic is about black text. Ndumi, welcome to the Dr. Fundi Health Matters show.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Doc, for having me. This is your first episode, and I'm honored. You could have chosen so many people, and you chose me. So, I'm going to add this to my CV.
Yeah, for sure. So just a little bit, I already told you that she's an author of the Handle Black Text Like a Pro. She's a self-leadership coach, one-on-ones or groups. She's a speaker, webinars, and does talks at different corporate environments. BCom marketing graduate. One thing that's important about that is that she took herself through varsity. She funded her own studies when other people wait for other people to fund their studies. She holds a certificate in neuro-linguistics programming for coaching. So she is a coach, qualified coach. But of relevance today, she is somebody who does a lot of work with the youth. Does a lot of work on issues like youth work readiness programs. And you'll tell us a little bit about what that is and what are you picking up. You know, we are often told that the newer generations, the millennials and the Gen Zs, they've got a different approach to work. And so you'll share a little bit in the context of the topic of today. She's, she worked herself from being a receptionist straight from high school to management level over a 12-year period. She's now a consultant in HR, PR, and many other things for the last 11 years. So one thing that caught my eye, the fact that you are a strong admirer of the late Eusebius Makeza. Maybe let's start there before we get to the topic of today. What is it about, the giant that has just fallen that actually, made you to admire him the way you say you do when we had our planning meeting?
Thank you for the introduction, Doc. But before, I'd like to correct, I'm not consulting in PR.
Okay.
So my background is marketing, and I've worked for a PR agency many years ago. And now I'm just focusing more on consulting around capacity development, coaching groups and individuals. So my client primarily will be mostly HR managers, HR directors, and general managers that need their teams to be worked with. And yes, on the issue of my love for Eusebius, may his soul rest in peace. What I loved about Eusebius is that he was courageous. You know, he lived his life to the fullest. You know, and he lived and he loved. And one of my biggest fears is to actually not live this life to my full potential. And Eusebius was like almost the end of the spectrum, or the opposite end of the spectrum for me. And I also loved the fact, of course, his voice, eloquent, so sexy. I mean, you could just, he had a subliminal voice, right? Yeah. But more than that, I loved his passion for this country. You know, if we had more people like Eusebius that are critical thinkers, that are not afraid to ask the uncomfortable questions, and are not wanting to just, put things under the carpet. And if you think about black text, this is what we do with it. That's why in the book, there's a section called The Elephant in the Room. Yeah. There's no need why it should be. So what I loved about Eusebius is that he just was not afraid to take issues out of the carpet, put them on the table, and force us all to look into it. And to me, he did it with love and compassion. So that's what I loved about him.
Beautiful, beautiful. So I've just read a little bit about your bio, made some mistakes here and there, but just one sentence. Who is Ndumi? Not the bio person now. Who is Ndumi? Ndumi Hadebe.
You know, that question, Doc, though, I always find it to be so unfair because we are so multidimensional as human beings. But in essence, I would call myself a person that is a truth seeker and is wanting at this point in my life to be as internal as possible in terms of just making sure that I'm aligned with my personal truth. Yeah. As I've realized that not doing that can be detrimental. So I am always working on that with me and in essence, helping others find courage to do the same for themselves.
Beautiful. Beautiful. So obviously we are talking largely about what you've written about.
Yes.
Your book, Black Text, Handling Black Text Like a Pro. But before I get to that, I know that you're one of the people who has done a lot of, I'll call it inner work to discover why you are here, right? You've been to Baruch, not far from here. Yes. You've been to many other ones as well, Demartini. Why are you here on earth? Your purpose.
My purpose.
Have you discovered it?
Yes, I would say I have. What I learned from Baruch, Dr. Baruch Banai, is that we hold a particular, almost in Zulu, we'll say sifumbati siwe, right? You know, you've been given a gift to share. And usually we may start fearing that gift, you know?
Yeah.
And my gift is the opposite of fear.
Yeah.
Which is love.
Yeah.
Right. And that is why in my book I talk a lot about even doing black text. Let's do it with love. Confronting black text, let's do it with love and compassion.
Yeah.
So an extension of my purpose, a big part of that is to live fearlessly.
Okay. So
and authentically. So that's a big part of my purpose.
Okay. So to somebody who's out there watching us, listening to us, they look at this title, Black Text.
Yes.
But is it something that only affects black people? Or it is actually something that's universal? You know, why Black Text?
Well, it is definitely universal. It affects people across the spectrum.
Yeah.
And it's in South Africa, it is predominantly black people that are suffering with black text. Okay. And I'll also tell you, I'll mention why we struggle with black text.
Yeah.
More. It's the fact that we inherited black text because of the past and political issues that we had, lack of access to the economy and so on. So our parents were at a disadvantage.
Yeah.
So what we've inherited, most of us, is black tax would
Yeah.
be more of a deficit than a surplus,
Yeah.
as compared to white kids or our white counterparts.
Yes.
Right? But one of the reasons why we struggle with black tax the most is because we struggle with boundaries.
Yeah.
We don't know where to draw the line.
We'll get there. We'll get there about the boundaries.
Yes.
Now, I'm just looking at page 2 of your book, right? Where you are defining black tax. I'll just read quickly.
Sure.
All right. You say black tax is the tax on income paid by most black people knowingly or unknowingly. Some pay it willingly and others unwillingly. It unfolds differently for different people, and it ranges from random small requests for money and airtime for regular payments, or regular payments for a sibling that is at school or varsity, or a cousin, or monthly allowances paid for the family upkeep. Some people, it even includes paying for expensive renovations of their parents' homes and buying new furniture. Some individuals reported having paid for weddings and traditional events relating to the wedding, and also to support a sibling that does not have a job. So can you just, obviously I read a lot around that, but in simple terms, it is responsibilities that we have, or we perceive that we have, to support other people who are, part of our family, nuclear or extended. All right? Yes. Now, just talk to me. When you wrote this book, what was your purpose? Why did you want people to read this book, about black tax?
Okay, so the book is more about boundaries.
Yeah.
So why I wrote the book was to highlight the fact that black tax is not so much about money.
Yeah.
Right, as we imagine, or as it is commonly known. So I wanted to shift the focus from just money, to being about boundaries.
Yeah.
And why that matters is so that we also see that we can stop the cycle. So a lot of people, when I've been on interviews on radio and corporate workshops and so on, then people will say, we will never stop black tax. We can never end the cycle.
Yeah.
I disagree.
Yeah.
I've already met some people who are black, who are my age, who are not paying black tax.
Yeah.
And all of them, when I've interviewed them, the answer is, the one common thread they have is that their parents were committed to a delayed gratification.
Yeah.
You cannot delay gratification of any kind if you lack boundaries.
Yeah.
So which means we have to learn the A to Z of boundaries.
Yeah. And I mean, when one reads the book in different, sections of the book, you do pick up that if you don't manage black tax, if you don't set those healthy boundaries, it may actually create serious problems around stress, around, mental health challenges and other problems. So therefore, it is not something to be ignored.
No, definitely. So within families, it starts with hidden anger, as you may have seen in some of the stories in the book. So that's resentment, essentially.
Yeah.
So whilst people are thinking, okay, well, I'm just going to hang in there, I'm just going to pay or do this black tax thing, even though I don't want to, without addressing it.
Yeah.
But when you look, ultimately, it's detrimental to the foundation of the family.
Yeah.
But when it comes to mental health,
Yeah.
it's the pressures that come with it then, because now there's the loans, the credit cards, and we have to manage the upkeep. I mean, look at what's happened in the past couple of weeks with the repo rate and everything.
Yeah.
So the stress just keeps on, the pressure just keeps on pushing on and pushing on.
Yeah.
And if we are not deliberate in the way that we manage ourselves around boundaries and money, around boundaries and black tax, then we're just going to be experiencing more and more of this frustration and this emotional and mental anguish, because we are not pouring it out to say, look, I can't. I can only go up to so far.
Yeah.
And let it be something that's discussed. We don't always have to appear like we are doing fantastically.
Yeah. The first time I heard about this concept of black tax, there was a book written by Nick Mhlongo that says black tax, is it a burden or it's an investment?
Yes.
Do you have a view? Is it a burden or is it an investment?
Unik Mhlongo, I credit him in the book. I thank
Yes,
him
a lot.
because we needed that question to be asked,
Yeah.
you know. So I'm grateful that Unjomani wrote that book and set the pathway for me and other people that are gonna cover this topic.
Yeah.
And so my view is that whether it's a burden or
Investment.
or ubuntu, or whether it's a burden or an investment, I say it's better when you are checking how you feel about it, right?
Feelings matter.
Feelings matter. So if you do it and you are doing it resentfully and you are doing it towards someone that does not have a plan, there's no timelines, it's just
There's an entitlement.
a bottomless pit, you know, then it creates this thing that your money is going somewhere where it's not accounted for, right? So in essence, if you're not holding yourself accountable and the person that's receiving the money accountable, then it's a burden.
Yeah.
But if it's done in a way that is transparent and your feelings and needs and your wants are considered. So in other words, you are not taking a credit card to buy me, to take me out for dinner. Right? Or getting a loan to do something for your mother. It becomes a burden if it's going to attract more money or more burden to yourself, you know. So those are the small little things that I think we are not looking out for. That we are saying it's either I'm giving or I'm not. But we need to give responsibly so that I or you as the breadwinner is not suffering in a sense that even your kids must inherit a black tax from you. So if it becomes like that, then it means it's a burden.
So again, during our prep meeting, you mentioned something about, I think there was a question around Ubuntu versus black tax. Is it not an Ubuntu thing to do to actually be involved in black tax? And you mentioned that Felicia Mabuza Sattle said something to you around that. Do you want to share?
Well, she shared a tweet. Actually, she commented around that and how that excerpt that she read was, bringing some flashbacks and memories of toying with the question of Ubuntu or black tax, right? As you can imagine, she's risen financially and career-wise. So naturally, she may have had to take responsibility at some point. And I think the question is similar in a sense that if we're calling it black tax, particularly when it comes with a sense of entitlement, when it comes with a sense of a burden, that at all costs, it must be done.
Even if it's to your suffering, even if it means you must, sacrifice certain things that you aspire to have, you or as a family, as a nuclear family, but you actually sacrificing yourself.
Especially your
for
financial goals.
Else.
Yes, absolutely. So in essence, it's a self-betrayal. But I'm saying it's not even a self-betrayal to just you. It's self-betrayal to the family. So if I take money I don't have and I give it, like in terms of a loan, and I do something for my mother, it's detrimental to me. It's detrimental to the...
By Professor Bonang Mohale. The title is Lift as You Rise. And I think it sort of ties up with what we're talking about, because if then really we want many families, maybe you are the first person to pass matric, you are the first person to have a university, qualification. You are the first person to have, a career that really earns you good money. And so there is that expectation from the rest of the family that you can't be driving a 4x4 when my child is struggling to pay registration fees, so you are part of the extended family. I come to you and say, give me 10,000 rand for the registration at VETS. So what I'm trying to say, isn't there a contradiction here, the lifting as you rise, and yet the need to manage, the black tax, demands?
So interestingly, because I was at a dinner thing with Mr. Moal, with
Yeah.
Bonang.
Yeah.
And I thought about this question as we were taking pictures together,
Yeah.
him holding my book, me holding his book, and
Yeah.
so on. And long before, actually, I've interrogated this question with myself, that it is impossible to help others rise if you have depleted your resources.
Yeah.
It is not, it's scientifically impossible.
Yeah.
I cannot give somebody 100 rand that I do not have, right? So I need to make sure that in my progression, in my growth, I am structured. I have enough. So if this is my cup, then let me fill up my cup.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be full all the way up.
Yeah.
But I definitely have to have a boundary, almost like maybe
Yeah.
up to here.
Yeah.
And I say, this is my threshold. It's my bandwidth.
Yeah.
And now I'm able to help. Because if I don't do that, then again, I am going back to the issue of I might even be setting people up for failure,
Yeah.
giving them the impression that I can give, when even my progression comes with its own responsibilities and it comes with its own complexities. You know what they say, that when you are driving a 4x4, there's just hangout you can't go to.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And your insurance goes up,
Yeah.
where you live goes up. So this, my view on this,
Yeah.
let's sit down with our families.
Yeah.
Let's paint the picture of what is true with our realities.
Yeah, now we're talking solutions. We're going to get to solutions. I wanted us to just, paint a picture of how this black tax issue can actually be a big problem. I mean, you've mentioned now that some people, they resort into being highly indebted only because they cannot say no, even if they don't have, and when, the repo rates go up, then it really, really becomes, a challenge. So we are just going to take a short break.
Okay.
All right. We'll listen to some voice notes, that have already come in from some of the people who've been listening. So we'll just take that short break. Also for us, to just, take a sip of water. And also for our audience, thank you very much for joining us. It's our inaugural, show today. That is an in-person show. And we hope that you are enjoying what we're doing. And in a few seconds, we'll be back with you.
Delicate effort by the 3-year-old Dr. Fundi digital health channel to expand its offering beyond the established virtual profile and current affairs interviews it has become known for since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic in 2020. Remember, in South Africa, Section 27 guarantees all South African citizens access to quality healthcare, meaning health is a basic human right enshrined in our national constitution. Yet because of historical health inequalities and other recent health system issues, that right has not been realized by the majority of our citizens. Therefore, it is important to have a platform of interactive engagement on various health and wellness matters to ensure a more informed citizenry that can then play an active role in reshaping or re-engineering of our public and private health systems for the better, toward the realization of healthcare for all.
Hi, my name is Ravilwe. I am from Protea Glen, and my take on black tax is that it really is a kind gesture of showing appreciation to our parents, to our elders, to our guardians, to the individuals that have raised us and have impacted in our lives in a positive way. Problem arises when black tax starts being an obligation in the household, because when we grow, we end up having our own responsibilities. We end up having to assume other roles apart from being a daughter or a son. We end up building families of our own that require money, that require our attention. And so I believe that we have to give back where we come from only if we are able to do so. I was impacted by black tax in a sense that when I started working my first job, I had to help build my parents' house and finish off the wall that my mom had started. For that reason, I was involved in a lot of debt, which I am still paying till this day. But I feel like had I focused on maybe working hard and building myself as a person, I would have at a later stage been able to give from a point where I can actually afford to give.
Okay, welcome back. We're still with our guest, Ndumi Hadebe, the author of Handle Black Text Like a Pro. So I looked at the book. When was it launched?
The book was launched on the 29th of March,
Yeah.
2023.
So it's just over 3 months?
Yeah, just about.
About 3 months.
Yes.
Yeah. And your foreword by Prof. J.J. Taban,
Yes.
right? He talks there about, the fact that historically, it used to take a village to mold and grow a child, all right? And therefore, it's important when that child has become successful to sort of acknowledge, the contribution of all of those people. Doesn't that worsen this issue of black text, though?
Yes. I think the person that sent the voice notes, we didn't get her name, from Protea Glen. I like how she mentions the giving back, and then at the end, she actually comes to the crux of it, of how she got into debt to build a wall and so on, right? Yeah. And she mentioned something powerful at the end when she said, I feel I could have helped much better from a place of abundance, right? So that's exactly it. That even if it's a village, it takes to raise me. To give from an empty cup is detrimental for society. It's detrimental for the family I come from. Yeah. So the best thing to do is that I'm allowed time and space, and I remain committed that I will come back. As you were mentioning, the question of help as we rise, right? Yeah. The challenge is that people want help immediately. Yeah. They want us to give back immediately. Yeah. Whilst the pressures of really being a black executive or a black employee, you have a job, but it doesn't necessarily mean that you are actually...
You're still trying to sort yourself out, yet others are already saying...
Exactly.
We're waiting for you to give.
Absolutely. And then that lies the pressure of I must get a car in a way that is expensive. Yeah. I must get a house in a way that is expensive. So it means we cannot leverage any benefits that are out there for us to... So, for example, if you could save... so that you can then afford a car paid for cash instead of actually doing it in debt or using debt, So going back to, it takes a village. Yeah. Yes, indeed. It does take a village, and maybe not so many, in so many cases now that we living in the context in which we do. Yeah. But either way, also we never agreed that by you helping me, that means I owe you. Yeah. Right? So these are the things that we should be talking about. I think it's story 10, where there's a part where this young boy is asking his uncle, so what does this mean? Yeah. You are taking care of me. What does this mean for me? Does it mean I owe you? And these are the questions that we need to talk about. And also the how. So how do I owe you? Yeah. How do I repay?
Yes. The way you've structured the book is quite interesting. It's a collection of 10 stories, real stories. You just changed the names, of the people involved. And just the headings are interesting. I mean, story 1, it says, it's unappreciative mom. I am lovable without money. The struggle to say no to endless demands that could be avoided. That's story 1. Story 2, absent entitled father. When parental entitlement leads adult children to question the validity of black text. Story 3, indebtedness, or indebted, praying for a solution but fearing the answer when it comes. There is a price to be paid for not knowing. My favorite, story 4, 4 decades of black text. Yes. Lacking the courage to address core issues underlying black text can end up jeopardizing one's marriage. Story 5, when siblings needs are a priority. Self-sacrificing for the benefit of loved ones and dealing with the resentment that develops as a result. Story 6, when a blessing becomes a curse. With no boundaries in place, blessings may end up feeling like a curse. Story 7, friends who refuse adulting. Friends are the family we choose, but what happens when black tax puts a strain on the relationship? Which is why even this topic is being discussed in this show. It's a health show, but social health is part of the broader holistic health, because that's about relationships. You know, how do we build sustainable relationships, and how do we deal with black tax so that it doesn't affect those family relationships that we value so much? Widowed businesswoman, that is story 8, the specific kinds of black tax paid by African women. We know the stories about, you know, when the husband has passed, you know, the rest of the family, they want to demand, you know, what they think belongs to them. Yet, you know, that wife, who's now a widow, you know, is actually the beneficiary of those, you know, things. Yet the family will use, you know, their weight to try and deprive that person of those. Story 9, am I a burden? Recipients of black tax who feel guilt and shame for being a burden. And the last story, success guilt. When your chosen lifestyle is judged as elitist by those around you. And so you have the story, and we have a short, what do you call it, reflections on each of these stories in relation to what they should be doing to make sure that they are setting those boundaries. Yeah. So let's get to that story number 4, because I think for me, it is one of the stories that are so real. A gentleman who has been working, he's now in his late 50s.
Yes.
You know, he's worked for, you know, over 30 years in corporate. He went up to, you know, the C-suite, you know, yes. The chief, I think the chief marketing officer or something like that. You know, stays in Joburg. He's really a Lani guy. You know, and one of his subordinates who was struggling with black tax issues approaches him and asks him, you know, about how to handle a situation whereby the black tax commitments were now threatening his marriage. Just a little bit. Tell us a little bit about those characters.
So,
or maybe the lesson that you wanted us to learn from that chapter 4.
Okay.
4 decades of black tax.
Okay. So that story comes with revelations that most of us who pay black tax, we don't keep track of our black tax.
Yeah.
So that's lesson number 1. That because we pay small amounts, you know, it's 1,000 rand there, 500 rand there, you know, we don't check.
Yeah.
So with this gentleman, because he's alive and kicking, and he then went and tracked from the time that he was earning about 900 rands in the 80s, all the way up to now. Because for many, many years, there will be a set fee that he sends home. Yeah. And of course, then there's additional things, you know, he would help his sisters get married. And when it's Christmas, he must do like this bulk groceries going home and so on. It's not to say that he's
contributing to the upkeep of his mother's home.
Yes.
And everybody
who lives in it.
Yes.
Yes. So, in fact, in the story, there is nephews and nieces. So his sisters, when they have kids, they send their kids to the main home, to the mother's home, basically. Yeah. So they live with the mother, and he, as the big brother, takes care of those people that live with his mother. Yeah. And he does this for many, many years. And this is despite his wife actually saying, you know,
enough is enough.
We have one child. We need to have a benefit.
We took a decision that we're going to have one child because we wanted a certain quality of life as a family.
Absolutely.
However, now we're not getting the benefit of that, you know, life.
Yes.
Because you have this overcommitment to your sisters who are able, but not willing to work.
Absolutely.
You know, to these many other people who don't seem to appreciate. They just want to get. And so this young guy who was a subordinate wanted advice from him. How do I deal with the conflict between myself and my wife?
Yes.
Because now I think I'm doing the right thing, supporting my family. And my wife is now giving me an ultimatum that if you do not change the situation, I'm leaving you.
Yes. So what? In fact, if you do not change the situation, I'm leaving you. The second lesson is there that now this younger guy who's come in for help, he then has to confront his situation,
Yeah.
which is what the book is primarily about. Let's confront it,
Yeah.
not in a way that is causing war with the family, because boundaries need not be
Turf war.
exactly, need not be a hardcore confrontational.
Yeah.
It can be loving, it can be soft and compassionate,
Yeah.
and compassionate. But the lesson that this guy learns is that he cannot push it on. He cannot wish this away, because now Keta then says, look, I tried to do it your way.
Yeah.
I almost lost my wife.
Yeah.
And in me denying my core family's needs,
Yeah.
it threatened my marriage too.
Yeah.
So then it goes on to advise him that, okay, well, you basically need to admit that this is the situation.
Yeah.
This is what you guys can afford, because you obviously need to consult, because there was another issue.
Yes.
Keta is a man,
Yeah.
a Zulu man. He just, all he did was make sure that he's earning more.
Yeah.
He never felt the need to consult the wife
Yeah.
about the money that he's sending back home.
Yeah.
And these are the things that were causing rift between him and his wife. And ultimately, when their child needs to go to
In the art school,
a special school, because
National Art School. Yeah.
exactly, and his needs were exactly that, and she said, we cannot compromise our child on the basis that you are actually just
Overcommitted to your family.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is when then Derek, who is the young man,
Yeah.
the colleague that has come for help, realizes that the sooner he addresses it, the better. But the third thing is that then Keta confesses that he is actually, over the years, over the 4 decades,
Spent almost 2.5 million in black tax.
Exactly.
Money that if he had not used, in that way, it could have actually made their lives much, much better. So, and he only had to do that when his own wife, actually tired of this black tax commitment
Yeah.
and the self-sacrifice, he bought him a book, when she was on, some overseas trip, a book about boundaries.
Yes.
Which is basically the essence of your book.
Yeah.
You are actually talking more around the issue of boundaries.
Yes.
But I thought let's use this story to show that if you do not set boundaries, healthy boundaries with your family, nuclear, which is obviously, but largely the extended family.
yeah,
If you don't set boundaries there could be challenges.
yes.
Yeah.
And actually the challenges, I think, they are not, sometimes they're imagined.
Yeah.
I had a conversation with somebody yesterday
Yeah.
at a book event I was at. And this gentleman says, I spoke to my mom
Yes.
after I read your book, Ndumi.
Yeah.
And my mom, all she said was, oh, I didn't know. And
What didn't she know?
that he was overcommitted, that he was in debt, that all of these things were going on,
Yeah.
right? But why doesn't she know? Because he has not said it. So it's us that do not communicate with our loved ones. We do not tell them that we are taking strain financially. We
Yeah.
do not tell them that we've got all these loans and so on. Because why? One, we want to look as if, right? We want to keep up with the Joneses.
Yeah.
That's one. But number two, we have the fear that when we do communicate our boundaries, it will
Yeah.
compromise the relationship.
Yeah. Let's take another break. Just listen to a few more voice notes. I think the next voice note will be from Simon, and then Mujalifa, Kwos, and Senzo. So just 4. And I want you to listen carefully to those voice notes, but I want comments from you around, what they are going to be saying.
Sure.
Yeah.
Thanks, Doc.
I'm from Jacksonville. My view on black tax is that it is a bad and it is a good thing, It depends on how people have contributed towards your upbringing as well, you understand? Because this applies to your immediate family, your extended family as well. It means that supporting them financially, it might apply to your parents, it might apply to your kids, And once you're married in life, you have to know that some people expect something in return. It's like an investment, It's like you owe them something, you understand? So once you make it in life, you wouldn't also like to see the people that helped you to achieve whatever that you've achieved suffering or being in need of something. As an individual as well, you also want to contribute and assist. I don't know, it's something that we are used to as people that come from previously disadvantaged communities, previously disadvantaged backgrounds and upbringing, once you start to break the cycle of poverty, you also need to, when you're at the top, you need to assist those that come up behind you, you understand? It's one of those things, man. My name is
My name is Mojalefa MJ Mokgakabe. I am from Soweto, Komoletsane. I'm an entrepreneur in the creative space. I'm a music manager and an artist manager. So black text, according to me, in my understanding, has it's one term that we'd like to use when we start to run away from responsibilities and family values. I believe black text has impacted me so well, a beautiful, great impact in my life. Through black text, I was able to start my first business at 15, being funded by my family and so forth. So I believe that black text is something that we need to stay away from the stigma of making it look like a bad thing. It's actually a good thing to help your own family, because that's how most people, most communities get to make it. The Afrikaners, the Jewish, and so forth. You help your own family, you empower your own family and your community. That's
Kwesmaremane, all the way from Kudutlo village in Tawung in the Northwest Province. Now, this is my understanding of black tax. Black tax is whereby black brothers and sisters are forced, it's a force. You are forced to share the little income that you make with your struggling family members. And by so doing, what I've observed is that most of us fail to build generational income, because the little that you make, you're forced to share with all your struggling family members. Now, if I'm to make a good example of myself, this is what's happening. I'm taking care of my sister and all her children. So you happen to buy groceries for more than 2 households only because you are the only person with an income. And nowadays it has even extended to even people outside of your family, whereby you have an uncle in your next door who cannot stop claiming that they've taken part in seeing to it that you grow up to become the man that you are today, and therefore you owe them.
Soweto, Communities. Hi, my name is Denzo. I'm from Soweto, Communities. Yeah, my understanding of black tax is just it's really holding back current the working class. Ke tla e beha jwalo. Regardless of o etsa jwang, because you are not looking at yourself. Like I'll talk about myself, how it has impacted me. As someone who's like working, I had like okay, my dreams were kebatlo so, but just because I have to like nje ki shebe kuntlung, and then the demands like they never end, and I feel like iba taba or like family feel entitled. They don't care about what you want to, as long as you are bringing the money. So when if you are working, your earnings have to think about what's happening at home first. Yeah, that's my take.
Thank you. So welcome back. Welcome back. We have just listened to, the views of people on the ground about the issue we're discussing today, which is black tax. We've listened to those voice notes, and I asked Ndumi to take some notes because I want her to tell us what she thinks about the responses that we've just got from, the voice notes. So, Ndumi, over to you.
Thank you, Doc. And I like that there is opposing views, right? Because that speaks to the opposite ends of the spectrum.
Yeah.
And let's start with Simon, who was the first person to come on. And he said, we are used to it. Why? Why must we be used to it, right? We cannot do things just because they've always been done. it's at any given point, it should be within someone's right to be able to question the status quo and say, hey, wait a minute, maybe it is possible to do this differently. And then Simon contradicts himself. He says something about breaking the cycle. So we cannot break the cycle when all of us are broke.
Yeah.
It is counterintuitive for me to get into debt to help my younger sister, thinking that in that way I'm breaking the cycle. What I need to do to break the cycle is to have a frank conversation with my sister and say, look, I cannot afford to buy you a dress that is 3,000 rands for a matric dance. I only have 1,000 rand and I have cash. Let's go and buy this is all that I've got, and I give you that, because if
you're not gonna go and swipe,
not swipe, because if I do that, it means if I buy the dress for 3,000 rands, in essence, I'm going to pay an extra 25-30% more, right? So I'm drowning in debt. So who's gonna help her in 2 months' time? So to help now, open-endedly, without boundaries, it means I will not be able to help in future. And it means I'm not breaking the cycle, right? And then on to Mojalifa. I also love this line. People that use the word black tax are people that are wanting to run away from responsibility,
and
right?
values.
And values of Ubuntu, right? And what people are not realizing is that not having boundaries is running away from responsibility of building the family. In story 4 with Keta, in reality, we don't get to that, Doc, in the story, in the book. But in his life, in real life, when he said to his brother, I'm passing on the baton, I am good now, I'm not going to be the primary provider, now that my parents have passed on.
That is Keta.
That is Keta on story 4.
On story 4, when he decided enough is enough.
Enough was enough.
It's been almost 40 years of me being this
giving and giving and investing in businesses with not seeing any ROI and this and that. And so I said, I've done it with love and it's okay. Now I am focusing on me and my retirement, right? Guess what happened in that family?
They hated the wife.
They hated the wife and the family broke down.
Yes.
So they've stopped talking to him. Why? Because...
And this is a real story we're talking about, right?
Exactly. Yeah. Because all these years, money was the agent. Was the glue that was facilitating activities within this family. It was not love. It was not compassion. It was just money. So if we say we are running away from responsibility...
At what point do we set a limit?
And also, it is irresponsible to help someone to a point that someone becomes unable to help themselves. So there has to be we have to draw the line somewhere, precisely because sometimes when you're not helping, you are giving someone an opportunity to figure things out on their own.
Yeah.
And when you are just keep on giving and giving and giving, it becomes somewhat irresponsible.
And there's a sense of entitlement.
Absolutely.
You are the deputy parent.
Yes.
You are taking over the responsibilities of our parents who have passed, and you shall do it in perpetuity.
Exactly. So Kos actually said this. He used the word forced.
Yeah.
So there's a difference between power and force. I'm sure in fact, there's a part in the book that draws this diagram about this. So force is the thing that you are forcing. You know, it's almost like a resistance.
Yeah.
Power is just you flowing with in essence, with the energy of what you want. Yeah. But what Kos is mentioned here is that he feels forced. How is that good for the family that is benefiting from Kos, that Kos is feeling forced? Yeah. He's feeling trapped by his family to do this black tax thing, right? And right now, he says, I am unable to build generational wealth because I am taking all my income towards my sister and all her children. Yeah. Right. So...
Maybe sister must learn some contraceptives available free of charge.
That's your department, Doc. You are the one that knows all things medical and so on, family planning, whatever else, right? But from a basic 101, just taking responsibility in a way that you don't have to burden other people, right? So Kos is forced and he cannot build generational wealth. This takes us back to Simon's point. It means for as long as this guy is paying black tax in this fashion, it means he will never break the cycle. He will never. And I think somebody made an example about Jews. Jews have healthy relations with money.
Yeah.
They build generational wealth. They are like the fewest in terms of population and numbers.
Yeah.
But have so much wealth that they've accumulated.
Yeah.
You know? So we cannot compare black tax in the way that Jews structure their families, right?
Yeah.
So, and then the last one is Denzo in Soweto. And he says he feels that black tax is holding back. It's just a thing that holds people back because the demands never end.
Yeah.
So I think what I can say to that is that when a person is on the receiving end of an open-ended tap,
Yeah.
no one really is ever going to come and say, oh, Ndumi, I'm so sorry I'm abusing you and your money. I feel bad. I think we should stop now.
Yes.
That's never going to happen.
Yeah.
What is likely to be a possibility is me saying, look, family, I have contributed to this extent. It's been good. And what I've noticed is that I have been doing this in a way that has been taking away from my ability to save or my ability to invest.
Yeah.
I have decided that to help this family break the cycle of poverty,
Yeah.
I want to finish debt, I want to save, I want to invest. And I think the
And
majority
you
of
think the average extended
Parent.
family will understand that?
yes, even if they don't, PR is not your problem,
Yeah.
right? You
Yeah.
have to be authentic and be true to you,
Yeah.
and you cannot be helping people with the wishes of wanting to be liked and
Yeah.
to be favored.
Yeah.
You owe yourself the truth, and
Yeah.
you owe people the truth.
Yes. Beautiful.
And so those are all
Those are
the
all your comments.
voice
Yeah.
notes we've
Yeah.
got.
So I asked you earlier, what was the purpose for you to write the book? Because obviously we've been focusing a lot on the problem.
Yes.
Yeah. But I think as we go towards wrapping up the show, we now need to really focus more on the setting the boundaries, the how. Obviously people need to buy the book so that they can get the detail of the how. But I'm sure you can give us, just a high level of the things that people need to do, But before you do so, you wrote in the book that you want to contribute to a conversation that will cause a sustainable shift from negative feelings of annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, resentment, puzzle, to a new puzzle of structured black text where matters are discussed openly, the feelings and thoughts are shared without destroying relationships.
Yes.
So I'm hearing you saying it is possible to still contribute to black text, but in a way that is not detrimental to your own interests.
Yes.
And maybe this is where I want you, because you are then saying if you don't destroy relationships because it has been done in structured way, openly, feelings and thoughts have been, considered, then there could be progress for all.
Yes.
So just give us some tips, in your own life. Have you had to actually implement some of these things that are in the book?
Yes, of course. I'm writing about boundaries precisely because it's something that I've struggled with pretty much my entire life or my adult life. But I think as I continued, working, making money, and then being self-employed and realizing, hey, I've got years and years of experience, but I've got nothing to show for it, right? So that's when then I had to have a frank conversation with myself and say, something needs to change here, and I do touch on this in the book that, yes, in my early years of working, I paid black tax, and I do believe that by virtue of luck, I think, also because my parents are not people that are fixated on instant gratification. We never had pressure to be renovating the house and doing all those things.
So you come from an affluent family that doesn't demand much from you.
No, it's not affluent. It's that my mom, actually, when we grew up, my mom was bebembiza ngoqo.
Ngoqo is a miser.
A miser, right? A person that saves, a person that gives you exact money for bus fare, right? And if there's going to be change, she expects it. She will add to the difference because that's all that she had, Okay. So with that,
so you guys were grown up to have healthy relationship with money.
So we had a tight budget,
Yeah.
which meant for me personally, when I was growing up, almost an absent relationship with money because someone else was in control of the money.
Yeah.
Never had my own pocket money and the like, right? But the point I was making about the parents was that when we were adults, as 3 children, the priority was that the money that we were making must go towards our own education so that we can go further, right? We can go further than our parents. There wasn't the pressure that, oh no, but you know, I need you to change my windows. I need you to do, we did those things when we could in time, right? But when those dynamics were taking effect, we had to have the conversation of this person my younger brother, for example, had to go back to school full time.
Yeah.
That's it. He's back at school. It means that you as a parent cannot now be expecting any money from this individual as much as he's in his 20s, late 20s. It's neither here nor there. The point is that the primary focus is that this person must get the education they believe that they want, right? So we had the conversations. At some point, I remember my dad was frustrated thinking, my son is going to go back to school full time whilst he already has a BTech in something else. What is this? You know, he's already earning maybe like close to 30K a month or something, right? But we had to paint the picture for him that we cannot be having jobs in this time. We need to be having careers that we are proud of and that we feel strongly and passionate about, right? So there was an understanding there.
Yes.
And with that shifted the conversation in our family. Then we started pouring into ourselves more so that later we can pour back into the family.
Yeah.
That's the shift that I'm talking
Okay,
about.
so that is for you. But
Sure.
in general, in the book, what 3 tips around setting? It can be easy to set boundaries when it's been free for all, you know, for 3 decades, and all of a sudden we have to say it stops here. So just how can I make sure if I start that conversation as a person, you know, with my family or extended family, you know, that what are the pitfalls to, you know, or tips, you know, one to you know, so that conversation doesn't result in hatred just because. I mean, I know of, you know, one distant friend, you know, his niece was going to have a wedding, and so they volunteered that they will pay for the venue costs.
Sure.
Right? That's it. But from that, it grew to expensive stuff.
Decor.
No, just the lady, the niece.
Yes.
You know, stuff from Makosa, costing over 100,000. You know, for the traditional thing.
Yes.
It grew into venue. You know, obviously that was what they had committed to.
Yeah.
You know, transportation and everything else. And these were not negotiated. They just had to do it. And it left the person very, very resentful because he had already decided this is a bigger part of the cost, you know, of having this wedding.
Yeah.
I'll take care of that.
Sure.
But then him making that commitment, it just grew to basically taking care of everything. And he spent hundreds of thousands as a result of that. So this is now the entitlement part. So how do you make sure that as much as you love your sister, you love your niece, but it's not going to be an open checkbook?
Yeah. Well, so the starting point is for us, Doc, to define what's important to us, right? Using our personal truth as a reference point, which in brackets would be your needs, your wants, your thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
So once we are clear on that, you know, so I have my budget is for accommodation. It is this much. We can be. He could have been explicit about that, and that's it. So that's one. But in general, other than outside of an event, how we introduce the issue of the elephant in the room, black tax, so that we can set a new boundary. It's first of all, do not introduce the topic during a request, a black text request that is pending. It cannot be in reaction because then you're not going to do it in a way that is responsible. You're not going to be able to do it in a way that is contained in terms of choosing your words and so on. So it has to be outside of a black tax request, and also be outside of any drama going on in the family.
Yeah.
So one can just simply propose, guys, if you're available this weekend, please can we have a meeting? I would like to chat about something that's come up for me. It doesn't have to be specific what has come up. You can just say something that has come up for me. And if it's Wednesday, make sure that the meeting is that coming weekend before you talk yourself out of it, right? And when you do get home to that meeting now, so you have the relevant parties.
Yeah.
So if you still have parents, if they're going to be affected, they must be at that meeting.
Yeah.
It could be a sibling or siblings and so on. So they are there. And when the meeting takes place, it must not take an accusatory tone. The focus should not be about you winning the conversation.
Yeah.
What I mean by that is that I cannot say, you, mommy, you did this to me, and this is why now me, I'm struggling.
Yeah.
So the past is what has happened. Black tax has happened. You allowed it.
Yes.
So even if you did not want to, you allowed it. So now it's time to approach this conversation with accountability by simply saying, family, I've been looking at my finances. I've been working for the past 5 years, past 10 years, whatever the number is. And I realized that I have been irresponsible in the way that I've been managing my money.
Yeah.
Because today I do not have savings. I do not have sufficient investments. I'm in debt. I'm in this. You state whatever the situation is. And I feel,
Yes.
black people need to learn how to feel. I feel that it is time that I change this for myself and this family. So can you feel how that is different compared to accusing everybody around you that was receiving your black tax and absolving yourself of the blame, right? So once you introduce it in that way, you are presenting the situation.
Yes. And that's what Keta did in that story 4.
Yes.
He said, guys, this is the situation.
Yes.
And I'm basically stepping down from this role, but any of you is free to take over.
Absolutely.
So no one is stopped from playing that role, but for me, it ends here.
Oh, this is how far I can go.
Yeah.
So if your limit is 1,000 Rand a month or it's 2,000 Rand, whatever that is, it's okay to communicate that. But number 2, it is okay, guys, to tell our families that we are struggling. It really is okay. So most people that are sitting with this uncomfortable conversation, they are not being transparent with their loved ones. They're not saying that, I know that it looks like I earn 50K. But actually, I only earn 25. And how that affects me is 1, 2, 3.
Yeah.
The dreams,
So basically transparency.
transparency. The dreams that I have for this family are 1, 2, 3. The financial dreams or financial goals.
Yeah.
So the book is written from the premise. This is a book. The premise of we all want financial freedom.
Yeah.
That's the assumption that I've made,
Yeah.
right? So a person that does not want to ever be financially free, it's okay. They don't have to read the book.
Yeah.
They don't have to apply boundaries because in any case, they don't have the ambition or the want,
freedom.
absolutely, the want of actually getting to financial freedom, which means in essence, when they retire, their kids will have to look after them,
Yeah.
which is
We're perpetuating
Exactly.
what has been happening over the years.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. So we getting to that point of wrapping. Obviously, as you do this, it may not always work well. There could be a lot of backlash, because people think that, oh, now you think you've made it, and now we must suffer, and then make and guilt trip you and gaslight you
Yes.
and do all lots of things. So how do you deal with that?
Okay, so that question is always the most difficult one to answer because we are living, in my view, in the rise of times where there's narcissistic tendencies, where there's bullying tendencies, and some of these can come from our parents, it can come from our siblings, and it may be difficult for us to manage that, which means we are in toxic or dysfunctional relationships, and maybe we're not even aware of it. But generally, when we meet resistance of that nature, my take is that we gotta be willing to stand for the truth.
Yeah.
So remember at the beginning you said you spoke about my love for Eusebius, right?
Yeah.
And you asked me what my purpose is.
Yeah.
And those two answers related to issue of courage,
Yeah.
the issue of a living life that is the opposite of fear.
Yes.
Right?
And authentic.
And being authentic to yourself.
Yeah.
And at times, there will be a misunderstanding.
Yeah.
And misunderstandings do not necessarily mean the end of the world. A backlash is just a backlash.
Yeah.
You know, and I think when there's another thing that Eusebius is to like, says, I don't owe you agreement.
Yeah.
Nobody owes me agreement around this book. And also our families, when we express our boundaries and they disagree, it is within their rights to disagree. They don't have to see it the way that we see it. We just need to be authentic and true to ourselves.
Yeah. There's just a few comments that have come through from Twitter. There's one that says the problem of black text or with black text is the difficulty of breaking the cycle.
Yes.
Most people want to enjoy life, so they eat everything and leave nothing for the next generation. Yes. Unless one generation decides to be completely selfless for the sake of the next, black text shall continue. There's also another message, one from Elvis, who says black text is one thing that sets that sets African youths back. We have to forego all our personal development and hold the hands of our kins till they stand on their own. Nevertheless, be proud of it. Combined efforts later to make work easier in a family. That's just one of the of the comments. There's also another comment. Unlearn it all. You cannot take care of everyone. When last did you take care of yourself? Or when last did you take yourself out? When last did you treat yourself to a proper dinner? When last did you save? When last did you invest? So I think it comes back to the thing that do not sacrifice your own needs and aspirations, you and your nuclear family, just because you are overcommitted. There needs to be a way of phasing your commitment out, in a responsible way. Absolutely. So that you prioritize your own family. There's also another comment here. Sure. This one is from Mo. How I solved black tax in my family. I simply stopped giving my siblings money. I started giving them assets towards their hobbies to turn them into business. Turning my siblings' hobbies into fully fledged businesses. The young bra is a mechanic. I bought him tools. The young sis is a beautician. So I helped him. I helped her to set up a salon, basically.
Get kids.
So there's, I think it's the concept of teach a man to fish, than to actually just give him, a plate of fish to eat for that day.
Absolutely.
So sustainable type of help that will help that person to eventually stand, on their own two legs. Yeah.
And the interesting thing, the first person the first tweet that you read, someone speaks about having a generation that should sacrifice, that should be selfless, right? Yeah. I do believe that we can hold some sort of balance, right? But in essence, is that we do want everything. Yeah. And that is why at the beginning I spoke about instant gratification. Yes. So instant gratification is the reason why we're struggling with black tax, is the reason why we're struggling with debt, because we don't know how to put anything on hold and say, okay, we'll do this a little later.
Yeah. We want it all and we want it now.
We want it all and we want it now.
And this also comes from those who are actually asking you for assistance.
Exactly. Right.
If you tell them that I'll only be able to assist when I get a bonus in December, but they want it now.
Absolutely, right? Yeah. And that is why it's important that you uphold your boundaries with the self. The last chapter talks about having boundaries with the self so that you're able to strengthen your boundary muscle so that you can be able to assert those boundaries with other people.
Yeah.
And also, speaking of, there has to be a generation. Why is it not us? Yes. That's going to be that generation that's going to stop the cycle, right? Because to stop the cycle is difficult. I agree. but are we hoping that our kids are going to do it?
Yeah.
But we are absolving ourselves
Yeah.
of their responsibility to do that,
Yeah.
right? So it's actually unfair.
Yeah.
And then going to Mo's comment on buying, setting people up. I believe in that. I've done that as well, where I feel that if you need to do something, here is a machine, here is a kit, do it and run with it.
Yes.
And in the case of Keta in story 4,
Yeah.
He did that multiple times with his brother in real life.
But the majority failed, and there were only 2 who succeeded.
Yes, and then there was no ROI
Yeah.
whatsoever, even for this individual that he had invested in. So I spoke to timelines. It's okay for us to say, I am going to help you up to so far.
Yeah.
And once we have reached this point, you have to run with this on your own.
Yeah.
We are living in a time where our kids may choose to go to a university in the US. You relate with that,
Yeah.
right?
Yes, I do.
So we don't have the luxury of not having money to send our kids to any varsity they want to go to in the world,
yeah.
which could be in pounds, which
Yeah,
could be
in
which- it
dollars,
could be in
euros.
dollars. Exactly. So just because someone else views their world in rands and only in rands,
And they think, okay, I mean, it's only about 150, thousand to send a kid to do engineering at Wits.
Therefore-
why do you have to take a child to the UK or to the US?
exactly. Why should you have to do that? Well, the point is that it's what I feel my child needs or my child has chosen. And that is the life that I want for me. And therefore, I should be entitled to have the space.
So the
to build
extended
the
family
life.
cannot determine the aspirations you have for your kids. They want you to save on taking them to the best, programs in the world so
Yeah.
that they can continue to benefit through what they
Cannot
get
be
from you.
negotiated because
Yeah.
you could have identified that as a need,
Yeah.
right? You know how there are some parents who believe that their kids should uphold individuality.
Yeah.
So therefore, they will go to a school that doesn't wear uniform.
Yeah.
Therefore, they will not decide what their hair looks like.
Yeah.
That's the belief that they've decided for themselves.
Yeah.
And that comes with money.
Yeah.
It comes with sacrifices.
Yes, yes.
So it's you.
So
you-
basically,
you get
anticipate the fact that some people are not going to be happy. Sometimes they will be violently unhappy. But you know what? Stick to your decision.
yes.
And prioritize self,
Yeah.
prioritize your nuclear family. As long as you believe you did it, there's this thing called tough love. You can't have people being entitled forever. At
Yes.
some point, they need to be able, to roll up their sleeves and actually make something out of, the skills they
Absolutely.
have, or reinvent themselves, looking at the opportunities that are out there. But they cannot continuously, be, having that begging bowl, which is taking from a depleted bowl.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And it's when a blessing becomes a curse. In that story, one of the when I interviewed the person
Yeah.
in question in the story, in her reality, one of the conversations that she had with her brother was that he called and she said, her answer was, I hope this will not end up being about me parting with money.
Yeah.
So do you see how dysfunctional
Yes.
that relation
Already
is?
you see the phone call coming in.
Exactly.
You're already anticipating another demand.
Yes, and you just feel like, whilst you should be getting excited about the call that you get from your brother,
Yeah.
but her feelings, her reaction is
It
valid.
said it all.
It's valid, and the reason why she induces that or she has that is because she has not spoken the truth about how she feels about parting with close to 3,000 to 3.5 for someone who's very well capable,
Yeah.
or someone who decides certain jobs are beneath him.
Yeah.
Now, specifically this individual,
Yeah.
this was the case. So, if you do not close the tap
Yeah.
or do not set the boundary, no one is going to come and rescue that or close the tap on your behalf.
Yeah.
You have to be the one that takes the ultimate responsibility.
So it needs a lot of courage.
A lot of courage, and also we need to do it in the way, I have to emphasize that we have to do it in the way that aims to build the family.
Yeah.
The point is not to create conflict.
But then you could have all those good aims.
Yeah.
But doesn't mean the recipients will actually work with you
Sure.
towards that goal.
But intention matters. Intention matters, right? So we can set the intention, but we could find ourselves in the situation where an individual is meeting resistance.
Yeah.
And also, when people are meeting you with resistance, it just means they are not ready for that conversation. All you may need is time. All you may need is a certain series of events to unfold around the family.
Yeah.
And the person might actually eventually come around, and it will be resolved in a way that is truthful.
Well, we have run out of time. Okay. I'm sure we can talk forever about, I think this was a very important conversation, and I would like people to actually go and get this book so that they can enjoy it the way I did. So can you just tell us, where can people go and get this book? Just show them the book, and where can they go and get it?
So this is the book, and it is handled Black Text Like a Pro, Setting Boundaries, Improving Relationships, and Achieving Freedom. And the book is available at Exclusive Books. Take a lot. And
I got them from Bargain Books at Mall of Africa.
Oh, yes, and Bargain Books.
Yeah. I've got 2 copies here.
Sure.
And I want you to sign them.
Okay.
$1 million signature. We will find a way, to engage with some of the people who have been, watching this, this podcast.
Sure.
So that they can actually be empowered. If they feel they've mastered how to deal with black text, then they can share the book with somebody else. But having read the book, it's written in a very, user-friendly way, simple language, very interesting, it's conversational the way it's written. So honestly, I would recommend anyone to actually, get this book. You don't have to be black to actually buy the book, because black text does affect white people as well. No, but obviously, there's more of black people who have got black text challenges than those, from the white population. That's an assumption. I don't have any scientific facts behind that. So, but people should just go and look for this book. It's been around for just about 3 months, and it's quite interesting, easy to read, very empowering. And I think I must thank you, Ndumi, for spending, this very important day, Youth Day. Yes. So just a closing, message to the youth of South Africa, number one. And also, it's Father's Day on Sunday, and you dedicated this book to your late dad. Yes. So just those two, a message to the youth and a message to your dad in afterlife.
Oh, thank you. I actually had forgotten that it's Father's Day until I spoke to my brother, like sometime in the week, inviting me to lunch. I'm like, oh, what are we celebrating? Yeah. So I look forward to that. But, in closing, Doc, the one thing that I'd like to share with the youth is that when you start earning money in your 20s and in your 30s, or whenever a person starts, it always looks like retirement is far. It always looks like, oh, I've got time. Oh, I've got time. And I'm not a qualified person to speak on investments and savings, right? But I can do the A to Z of boundaries. Yeah. But in this space, I would like to say people need to know that the sooner they start to save and to invest, the better for themselves and the better for their family. Because I think most people think...
And the next generation.
And the next generation. So people are always thinking that if I don't help now, I am messing with my family flow. Meanwhile, if you actually are pouring and pouring and pouring, you literally are becoming this, as I've poured from it. Yeah. It's empty now. And what it means, in essence, is that there is less there's less resources to now rebuild. You cannot pour from an empty cup. Yeah. So that's the...
So basically, saving. South Africa is not known as a nation of people who save money.
0.3, 0.4% of households in South Africa actually are able to save consistently. Yeah. And it's getting worse, obviously, with the times. So individually, that's what's important. And I think the second point is that even if you do not want to pay black tax, but you are paying it resentfully, ultimately, it's you that's decided to actually pay black tax. So even no matter how
you can put a stop to it.
and you can put a stop to it. But the point that I'm trying to make is that a person needs to see that even though you do not want to, you feel that you are burdened or whatever words we've used, ultimately there is a sense of you've agreed
Yes.
to it. Therefore, you must hold yourself accountable and say, I, Ndumi Hadebe, agreed to paying money to all these individuals without holding anybody accountable.
Yeah.
And then decide whether that's good for you or not.
Yes.
Right. And
Father's Day?
Father's Day, well,
There are a lot of fathers who are watching.
a lot of fathers who are watching. And so the one thing that I can say there is that fathers, I would like to encourage them to be present to their children. That plays a role. I know what a big role that played for me as a child, a black woman.
Yeah.
And it sets the tone and the standard for how I look at relationships, how I look at how people should relate with each other. So being present, not as in present or on the phone while you are present physically, no, as in being fully present.
Not just being an ATM dad.
Not being an ATM dad, but also not being a feared dad that is just physical.
Yeah.
So physical presence is not the same as a person asking their child, how are you? How was school today? What happened? How do you feel? Just being fully aware of what's happening with our children, because there's a lot that they're overwhelmed with, you know. And you said a message to my dad in the afterlife.
Yes.
Well, I think the one thing will be to say thank you, you know. So
Because you said in the book, he was present.
yes.
And what did that mean to you? You know, what was that to you, the presence? In what way was he present?
Well, he was present in a way that now when I was a child, I didn't appreciate it because
Yeah.
I didn't know better. I didn't have a comparison.
Yeah.
But now that I'm older, I look at people that actually grew up without fathers. I look at people that grew up with fathers but are completely absent emotionally,
Yeah.
you know, and they've even alluded to something like, you know, I don't know, even if this guy passed away, I don't know if I would actually be, you know, that hurts because he's there, but he's not there, right? So that, for me, affirmed how loved I was as a child and how I am worthy of love.
Thank you very much. And thank you to everybody who joined us today. It really was, to me, an interesting conversation with somebody who has spent a lot of time, you know, researching this topic of black tax. So today we've, you know, just had a take on it. We can never cover it in one show, but please go to your nearest bookstore and buy this book, Black Tax, Handle Black Tax Like a Pro by Ndumi Hadebe. It's really, really an easy read. It's very empowering. I would really, really encourage everybody to make sure that they have this book because black tax issues are there in almost all the families. And so this is her gift to all of you out there to be able to address this big, big elephant, you know, in the room. Thank you very much, Ndumi, for gracing us with your presence. And obviously, thank you to all of the viewers. This is our inaugural, you know, in-person show. And we will endeavor to do better and better with each and every, you know, show that we do. We've got very interesting lineup of people who are decision makers, who are influencers in the broader space of health. We're looking forward to inviting somebody from the Ministry of the Department of Health nationally so that we can talk about NHI. So there's many, many other things that we want to talk to the new health ombuds, you know, Professor Mukwena, you know. So there's a lot of topics that we want to cover. We are at a point where we need a lot of conversations in South Africa about various issues that are health related. And so thank you for being our first guest. And we will continue to bring in people, and I'm sure it's not the last time that you are coming here, but continue doing good, continue empowering those young people in the companies, because sometimes they are happy to have the jobs, but they don't know why they are there, some of them, and they need guidance so that they understand what value can they add, how can they make themselves indispensable, within the organization so that they can grow. They are busy with YouTube and other things when they're supposed to be working. In my own organization, we're struggling with that. Some of the young people that I have in the organization, they really, playing cat and mouse with our managers. And we've now got to a point where we're saying we are going to manage the performance and we will dismiss people, obviously having followed the necessary processes, because people don't take seriously the fact that they are actually privileged to have jobs. There are many other people out there who don't have jobs, and it's the number one problem for the youth of South Africa, the problem of unemployment. So those who already have the jobs, they really must see themselves as privileged and do their best to add value to the organization. So thank you to everybody. Till the next time. And please follow us, like us, and share, so that we can actually grow. What we want to do, we want to be the number one podcast in the healthcare space within the next 12 months. That's what we want to do. So with your support, we'll get there. Thank you.
Thank you.
The Health Matters podcast by Dr. Fundi is a deliberate effort by the 3-year-old Dr. Fundi's digital health channel to expand its offering beyond the established virtual profile and current affairs interviews it has become known for since the beginning of the COVID-19 pandemic in the year 2020. Remember, in SA Section 27 guarantees all South African citizens access to quality healthcare, meaning health is a basic human right enshrined in our national constitution. Yet because of historical health inequities and other recent health system issues, that right has not been realized by the majority of our citizens. Therefore, it is important to have a platform of interactive engagement on various health and wellness matters to ensure a more informed citizenry that can then play an active